and I've been taken down a peg or two several times on different things I've been interested in or doing for people, and they're like, no, they've just dragged me back down again, because we don't like people to see succeed. Whereas the way I see it at Breakout, if I can help someone and they succeed, they'll take us along for the journey. Hi and welcome to Business Rainbows and Unicorns, where there's no such thing as failure if you don't try. This podcast is specifically for business owners or wannabe business owners. Say you've got a side hustle, or you've got a passion for something and you think it'd be absolutely amazing, or you see people that do amazing things with their passions and what they enjoy doing. Well, you can do that. So please subscribe, and we hope you enjoy listening to this episode. Hi and welcome to Breakout Business Rainbows and Unicorns, where there's no such thing as failure if you don't try. Now, today we have, I would say, a very special guest, but I'm crap at bigging myself up. So today, Liam's going to turn the tables and ask me questions. Nervous laugh and not really sure what to do. So, so it's International Women's Day this month. We're in March. It's 6th of March. And so we thought we'd do a couple of episodes. We've got a special episode about women founders and business owners. And we thought we'd do, Liam and Nisha said I had to do it, basically. That's not me wanting to do it. They've told me I need to do it. So, so I'll pass it over to Liam.
You, like, the self-deprecation aside, like, you are a very important guest. And I think that's important for you to remember.
Oh, I don't know. Thank you. Merry Christmas. What's that mean when someone gives you a compliment? What do you say? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Change the subject. The weather. Oh, it's sunny outside. But I think like, you know, so many people, whenever I hear you talking to clients and hearing people talk about you when you're not in the room, there's so much there's so many compliments, and like, I think you have a level of respect from the business and the brand that you've done, but also, like, having spoken to you about different things and worked with you for a while now, there's so much I've learned that I was like, oh, I didn't know that, and bloody hell. And we'll get into some of these things.
I assume if I know it, everyone knows it.
Yeah, but
why would I know something someone doesn't know?
Aren't we all the same?
Yeah.
Aren't we all the same? Like, I remember first setting up a podcast and literally knowing nothing, thinking, how could I get into doing this properly?
Yeah.
Have them come a long way. Now I take for granted stuff about, like, mic positioning and whatnot, and conscious that my mic's not properly positioned, but I'll sort that out in the edit. But yeah, so, like, I think we forget what we've learned, and because we're at that level, we assume that everybody's at that level, whereas it's really not. Like, the amount of times you run a course teaching Reels or Canva or whatever it happens to be, and you say a little nugget that's just a standard in your world because it's an everyday thing.
True.
Yet, like, how many aha moments do you get?
Yeah, fair. Okay.
Yeah?
Aha.
So, if nothing else, big up to Farley.
My imposter syndrome can't cope.
But for the audience who perhaps haven't heard the conversations that I've heard and been privy to, like, some of the information, let's take it back. Or first of all, let's introduce Farley. She is not only the owner of Breakout.
I can't even cope with that.
She's the owner and founder of Breakout. She's helped with endless not-for-profit charities. You're behind the scenes with a lot of different businesses.
Yeah.
So give us a little bit of a synopsis, a little bit of a flavour of what you do in your own words.
I don't know.
You don't know.
I wing it every day. I don't know what I do.
So where did it all start? Because, like, so leaving school, take us back. So where did your career start out? Like, what, you went and got a job?
Yeah. So I dropped out into 2 weeks into sixth form, 3 weeks, 2 weeks into sixth form, because I didn't like school. I hated school, was bullied at school. I wasn't really. I had this conversation recently, actually, that I saw myself. I knew everybody, but I didn't fit in any cliques or anything. But I did have a lovely group of friends that I'm still friends with now, so that's lovely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't enjoy school. I like learning, but I didn't like the format of it. It wasn't for me. So, and I remember sat in the sixth form office with sixth form teacher at the time, Mr. Brown, And he was like, you need to stay. And I was like, you want me to stay because you get money for me staying. And he didn't really know what to say to that. And I was off. So I left. I went down to the job centre because that's in my world what you did. And I got a job at a local garage, as in car garage dealership.
Okay.
Family run dealership, just doing accounts admin. And I'd always said when you're at school, and anyone listening to this that's in like year 10, 11 or sixth forms, what do you want to do with your life? I was like, I don't want to work in accounts. My mum does accounts. Didn't really know at the time what my dad did, but he kind of looks at spreadsheets, so don't want to do accounts. So I got a job as an accounts assistant, £6,000 a year. At the time I was working at tea rooms at the weekends as well. So I'd always worked since I was young because I liked getting money. And I worked there, which was really lovely. Really good team. Learned a lot about different personalities because it was a family run business. So you had the owners, very different owners. And I went through a lot. We lost one of the guys I worked with in a car accident. And being quite a close-knit team, that was really, it's just hard. There's a lot to go through at, 18 basically. But yeah, so it was interesting to adapt and understand the different personalities of who I was working with. And then I outgrew it, and there's a guy there I didn't work with very well, but technically I reported into him. I didn't really agree with his way of working.
Okay.
And it was really, I was very much like, if someone's more senior to you, they're right, and you listen and must do. So I then find it really, really uncomfortable and weird and awkward when I'm like, I don't think this is right. There's a better way of doing this. No, my way's the only way. Okay, fine. Anyway, long story short, I got a job at Green King in Bury St Edmunds in payroll. Again, never wanted to work in accounts. And now if anyone asks, do you do payroll? No, don't do payroll. So I ran a payroll for 1,100 people.
Wow. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, and it was really, really like the job. Like, it was a processing weekly payroll job. Processing job, which is fine. So I pick things up quite quickly, which is great, but then I get bored. Like, you ain't challenging me. I mean, managers would make an issue with people's hours, but other than that, it's the same process every week.
Bit Groundhog Day.
Yeah. But also it was an office filled with 20 females and one male, token Paul, if he ever listens to this. He was a lovely guy. Which in my world is absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
Now, I always say I don't get on with females. That's not true. Some of my biggest support network, and my bestest friends are female. But I grew up with lads. I learned it's why I'm called Farley. I grew up being called Farley because that was your surname when you played football over the field.
Yeah.
In Acton Massive, if anyone's listening. And that's what I was used to. I was used to dealing with lads that you knew where you stood. If you pissed them off, you had a word, you dealt with it. I think there was one that would regularly just shove each other or punch each other, and you got on with it and you're absolutely fine again. So when I got into the work world, I found women really difficult.
Okay.
My first job, they took on a receptionist who went out of her way to try and get me fired.
Wow.
So she'd
and like, you walk past her every now and again. It's not like you're.
It was mad. She'd literally do stuff and tell the owners it was me. And like, we're two 18-year-olds. Who are they going to believe? And it's just
Tit for tat and
mad.
Just.
And then going into the pet, it was fine, but I can't cope with mean girls. I just can't. And this is my biggest thing about International Women's Day. Now, I was in a cafe the other day and the guy said, what about International Men's Day? I'm like, every day is International Men's Day. Because half of me is very much like, it's obviously always been a man's world. We can go back over the history of like, God, when I found his mortgage card the other day. Dad was a hoarder, of getting the mortgage, which was the same year as before women could get credit cards. And it's just mental. So I do get, and I'm very conscious of men's mental health and not talking. So I don't like, so our networking is not women only. But I also don't agree with women do need that push. We need to support each other. And I think
you get a lot of issues with women when they're jealous, when they're envious, and it just creates a really toxic environment. And that I didn't suit that well. That didn't sit with me well. And I'm very much of a people pleaser. And I will do stuff for people to like me, which included just being like joining in, really, just being a bit bitchy and horrible, which, I mean, how many people, I don't know how many women would own up to that, but yeah, I could be not nice because you wanted to get in with them, because if you weren't, they'd be bitchy and horrible to you.
Yeah.
And that's no excuse. That's absolutely no excuse. But it's just one of those things. So yeah, that was a horror. It wasn't great, but the work was what it was. But it got me in at Green King, and then a job in purchasing came up. So I went to work over in purchasing, where I was responsible for 1,100 pubs, and there I moved around. I looked after food at one point, and then I went into goods not for resale.
So purchasing, talk me through that. If I don't know what purchasing is, I think I know what it is, but
I buy stuff.
literally buy stuff.
Yes,
So
literally buy. You're basically managing the contracts.
okay,
For all the pubs. So it's whether it's a food contract. So obviously Green King's got many. If you use pubs in the village, everything on their menu needs to be bought. Everything
It's got to come from
needs
somewhere.
to be bought.
Yeah.
So whether it's the glassware, the crockery. So I ended up on goods not for resale, which I joked was the glamour of the department, bins and bog roll.
Oh no.
So we had a multi-million-pound contract. Well, Biffa had a contract with us. So I was responsible for negotiating and managing that contract.
Okay.
So yeah, so it was, I think I learned, I mean, I was there for 14 years and I don't tell people. So I've got a qualification in buying stuff, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
Which is actually the certificate in purchasing and supply. So you do level 3 to level
Yeah, because it sounds easy,
5 or 6.
but there's going to be a lot to it. Like you mentioned buying stuff, but then you mentioned contracts, and it's like, oh, hold on, it's a little bit more than just, we need to go down the shop and buy some toilet roll. It's a large scale process, isn't it?
Which is then you're arguing with 1,100 managers why they shouldn't go down the shop and buy toilet roll, because it's cheaper than the toilet roll we've got on a purchase list that they need to buy from a central supplier. It's distribution, it's miles to where they're ordering from, it's how to order, where they're ordering from. It's a lot. So this is where I come in, and I suppose people see me on social media because I put out and I am that person, although you will always find me if I go missing because I look like this all the time. But I will put out, like, I know this, I know that, I know whatever. So I know I get a lot of people assume I've got quite an ego or I think quite a lot of myself, whereas I don't. So I forget that people don't know what they don't know. I don't understand that people... I think it is just buying stuff. So to me, it makes sense. But if no one's ever sat in that environment, that they don't know, well, actually, yes, we are buying this mug, for example. Well, where's the mug from? Is it from the UK? Is it sourced overseas? If it's sourced overseas, what's the audit process? Is it the fact that it's made in China? Well, what's the factory like in China? Have they got child labour in China? There are factories with massive false walls, so they can be audited and tick all the boxes.
Right.
But behind the wall is the cheaper labour and issues and stuff. So, I mean, I'm going back a fair few years, and that's kind of a worst case scenario. But then it's knowing how this mug's made. Well, it's black, but if it was white, would it be cheaper? Because ceramic's obviously white. And it's all those little things and the cost breakdown and seeing the factories and doing all of that. And that's, I just go along for the ride sort of thing of knowing. And I learnt there was an amazing team. And that was nice because I kind of fell into a mixed team. So that worked really much better for me.
Better environment, yeah.
So much better environment. And then so I then, what did I do? I went on to doing bins and bog roll to my heart's content. Had my own team, so then ended up managing people.
Okay.
Great, hands up, I'm the worst at managing people. I think everyone, I'm not very good at telling people what to do, but I'm good at explaining stuff and going through, so that's fine. People know where they sit with me and they lie, but I expect them they can do that job, so they do that job. So it's when they don't or anything goes wrong, I'm not very good at I just think you
The training element. Yeah.
exactly. So then I fell pregnant, and it was classic for me that I sat in the a meeting. So you used to have to budget as well. So you'd agree your budgets of what you were going to save and how 1,100 pubs are going to perform and how all the products and services and contracts are going to perform a good 9 to 18 months before it actually happened. So you have to plan for things like COVID, a war, and
Yeah.
yeah, of course. So me and my
Crystal ball in the corner. Yeah.
I do actually have a real crystal ball. Should have bought it. And so you used to have to plan and prep in advance to put in your targets and create all of that, so the business can build it in for their budgets, etc., etc. So I sat in the meeting with my boss, Jason, at the time, who was just so lovely. And he was like, right. And I was like, I'm really sorry. I can't do this. I feel like I'm lying to you. I'm actually pregnant. I'm not going to be here next year. It's my team that are going to have to do it. It's like, oh, okay. So, of course, you have your little form when you're 12 weeks pregnant. So he was like, have you got your form? Oh, no, I'm only 4 weeks gone.
So.
And I told him, I said, but don't worry. I'm going to work up to... So obviously this didn't happen this day. When I got everything else and we progressed, I was like, no, I'm going to work up to my due date and then I'll go off and we'll see how it goes. And he said, looking back at the time, he's like, she's so not going to work up to her due date. I did, because if you tell me something, I'm going to do it.
You got that determination.
If I talk about it, it's going to happen. So anyway, I worked up to my due date, had my daughter. And then always in the background, so I've always helped my friends' businesses. So I've got a friend who started a joinery business, so I've always done his bookkeeping. I had another friend that I started helping him with social media, because social media then wasn't...
It was quite a new thing.
Yeah, so I'd help him with social media. Notice I'm still saying him a lot because I work better. I feel bad, girls. I love you, girls, but we'll come on to that. But... yeah, so then while I was on maternity leave, Green King went through some changes and they merged and they were going to move the whole team to Burton-on-Trent.
It's a big move.
Yeah, so no one wants to live in Burton-on-Trent. There's nothing there but a few pub companies and some factories. Sorry, Burton-on-Trent, but Bury St Edmunds wins. So you could move, you could commute, or you could take redundancy.
Well, and that commute's going to be a long...
And you didn't get paid. So if you commuted, you had to be in the office 3 days a week and they weren't going to pay for hotels. So
it was going to be on you.
Yeah, it wasn't. They didn't sell it.
Wasn't an attractive offer.
No. So I went back early from my maternity leave to do a handover for my job. I handed over my role to 6 people in the new company.
Okay.
So that always makes you happy. I still never stepped foot in the office in Burton-on-Trent. So you need to come to Burton-on-Trent. I don't. I'm losing my job. And this is where I'm stubborn and difficult, because I'm like, you're making me redundant. I still technically would be on maternity leave, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
And
you're going above and beyond because you're coming in early to
help and hand over.
Yeah.
Some of them were very much, well, we already do that for pubs. It's the same company, so we don't need you. I was like, fair play. So crack on.
You do you.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it was, I don't know. It was fine. And I just take things in my stride as they happen.
How did you find that though? Was that a stressful time? Like you were a new mother?
It was. I think the hormones helped in some ways for me to not care.
Right. Because there's a bigger
thing on the other day. I was getting my redundancy money.
Yep.
I've got a 1-year-old or just 9-month-old at that point. So everything goes on keeping that tiny human alive.
Yeah.
So you've
got to focus.
That's your focus.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Ben and I talked about it. And Ben's my husband, FYI. Just slide that one in because I haven't mentioned him. But he, at the time, he's been self-employed and he's self-employed now. But at that time, he worked for a college teaching gas and plumbing rather than being self-employed.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a job, he had an income. So you kind of like, I don't know, you just
Work it out.
Yeah, we just work it out. So I said, right, I'm going to start my own business as a virtual assistant. Well, personal organizer, I think was the phrase I used. And start my own business as personal organizer. I've got 6 months' money. If it doesn't work out, I'll go and
Find
work
something.
at something somewhere else. There's plenty of jobs around.
Mm.
So I set up, did my own website, did some flyers, did some social media, and set up as a virtual organizer. Me being me, listed everything in the world I could do.
Yep.
Which is about 50 different things on a flyer. Didn't niche down at all. But yeah, just gradually started getting customers and clients in.
And was that due to the advertisement of everything, or where did you think you found your first? Was it word of mouth, or
Bit of word of mouth. So I had a few people, because my mate who I'd done bookkeeping for just put word out. So I slowly collected people that he knew that needed help with like bookkeeping. So
Great
back
stuff.
to accounts.
Yeah.
And just picked up stuff on the way. And I think it's that. So it's only happened a couple of times where I've had people go, "Oh, so what are your qualifications?" I'm like,
just been doing it.
For media, there's not really a qualification for social media. It's
Absolutely.
I've just always used social media, so I know what it can and can't do. And I've always used social media a lot. And then, like the bookkeeping side of things, I've just always done it. And if I don't know, I'll research it and look at it and do it. So
Yeah.
I'm an agent for the HMRC. So if I just take your details, so I file on behalf of you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all legit, but I don't know. It's just people like that. You get some people stuck on what you qualified in, and I'm qualified in buying stuff. So
I think qualifications are a funny one, aren't they? Because I think when you leave school or when you leave university, college and whatnot, I think qualifications are like a measure of like, where are you at?
yeah,
Like, how good are you working at somewhere? And that's the kind of gauge, because you go in cold, you can't really say, I've got stacks of this experience. But I think, like, having gone to university, I needed my university degree for one job I applied for. And since then, it might have been on the kind of like nice to haves list.
yeah.
But it's all down to experience. It's all down to what can you prove that you can do. And I think that, you know, based off of what you just listed there, that's going to be outweighing like the experience and like, can you walk the walk as well as talking the talk?
Yeah. And that's what my dad. So when I left sixth form, all of 3 weeks of it, my dad was like, "Don't tell your stepmom this," but he said if I was recruiting someone, said, and I had someone fresh out of uni, or I had someone that had done the job for 3 years, I'd take the person that had done the job for 3 years.
Interestingly enough, on another podcast, the previous company I worked for, before also being made redundant, we did a podcast, and it was all geared around traineeships, so like preparing people for work who weren't necessarily suited to college and things like that. But we had an accountancy firm come in, and the guy was talking to us off air, and he said we had people coming from uni, on paper, absolutely amazing, but they had trainees who were doing a better job because they've actually learnt what to do, rather than thinking they know what to do and their piece of paper saying so, and perhaps the work ethic wasn't there and stuff like that. So I think it's a really good point.
Well, I think as well, I think the biggest thing for me is dealing with people, and everything that I got from those 14 years at Green King, a couple of years at the Peugeot dealership, and then working in tea rooms for God knows, I can't remember how many years, for 4 or 5 years. I met everyone, like all walks of life, every type of person, and I got told at the weekend, actually, like, you don't suffer fools gladly. And I don't. I think that's experience and the people side of it. Because I can Google anything. Anyone can Google anything nowadays. I want to know how to set up a podcast and run my own podcast. Yes, I could sit and do it. I could Google it. I can research it. I don't have the time, and I don't think I'll be as good as you doing it, because that's what you do. But I could do it for myself. Same with a website.
100%.
Yes, someone can create their own websites, and it's why we either do social media for people, or we will train people to do their social media. And I've learned a lot about how to deal with people and what to do. And I think that's where I can pretty much know within meeting someone within 5-10 minutes if we're going to work well together or not. So when clients come in, if I don't think I'm going to do the best thing for them, I will recommend them to someone else or do that. Or I know how we're going to work together, because some people go, I want that done for me. But they might be like me and a complete control freak. And it's like me saying, oh, Nish can do all of our social media. She does, but also I do a fair bit of it. So I know she's great at the design and everything else she's great for, but I'm good at doing my reels and everything else, and we'll just put it out there because I can't cope with someone doing it 100% for me. And I think that's the thing. I had, I remember I had a line manager at one point, and I was, it was so at Green King you had annual appraisals, but you had like monthly one-to-ones or weekly, depending how. And it was someone I sat next to like this. When I walked in, every year I'd do the same thing at my appraisal. I'd walk in and they'd go like, how would you be rated? And you had unsatisfactory, room for improvement, satisfactory, great, and role models. Well, I would always walk in and go, role model, clearly. No one ever got role models, so it was a funny thing.
It was a false.
He was like, no, you're unsatisfactory. We need to put you under a improvement plan.
Wow.
And I was absolutely beside myself. I was proper ugly crying, can't breathe, because I was just like, and the thing is that an annual appraisal literally smashed me around the side of the head.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I couldn't cope with it.
Didn't have any kind of prior conversations to that. It was just a slap around the face of.
And I knew I had a bad attitude because he'd sit there playing Championship Manager on his phone while I was had too much to do. And I didn't, again, going back to what I said before.
Yeah.
I can't cut. I think everyone above me knows better. I will assume it's very hierarchical, and I hate hierarchy. It's why when people ask me, what do you do? What's your job title? I'm like, chief tea maker. I won't use the word director, owner. It's just not me. It's not how I work. So he had this authority. Anyway, long story short, I found out that he'd said to all the rest of the leadership team that I was horrendous, I was a nightmare. And as far as I was concerned, I was holding the fort, I was doing I was doing my work, the work was getting done. So they all believed him because obviously
power.
So yeah, and that kind of taught me that I need to get out of here. I can't work. I'm not corporate at all.
Would it be fair to say that the redundancy happened because the office changed, but we come almost hoping, or was there an idea of starting the business before the?
Yeah, so when that happened, I was just like, I just need to get out of here, and I always thought that it was a me problem, but since then I'm like, I don't fit into corporate. I can't cope with working with. You can't choose who you work with.
No.
In corporate, you're put together and you have to be. And I am adaptable. I'm an adaptable person, but that level of respect has to work both ways.
Yeah.
So if I know something, I don't understand why someone wouldn't listen to me, because it takes a lot for me to have the courage and conviction to go, no, I know this, I'm right. Because more often than not, I go, no, you know better, you must be right.
Of course, yeah.
So it's I don't know. It just blows my mind to the point of when you get someone who's not going to listen to anyone else. They don't you're not adaptable. That's what it is. So I'd already started. So I just started to go and going for interviews. I didn't get any of them because I'd have gone. But I don't come across well in interviews.
Yeah.
Ironic saying this being interviewed technically. But I'm very much of I prove myself by how I come across. I'm not necessarily liked straight away when I meet someone, because I don't sell myself. I'm not very good at bringing myself up, and I'm very much of the opinion, just and see what I can do and then go from there, which is what I say to people now. And when I say to business owners trying to get clients, I'm like, you have to work both ways. It's as much as if I like you as to you like me, but also it's that research of like, what do they do? How do they work?
Yeah.
How do they tick? What do they enjoy? And we've worked with business owners. I mean, I've been threatened since we've been doing this. I've had people with a wad of cash throw cash at me and say, well, you can have more of this if you do better. Social media classic.
Mad.
I can't do better when you don't give me any content, funnily enough. But
Yes.
it's that understanding and respect that you have to have both ways to make that work. And yeah, so was redundancy a good thing? Yes, definitely in the long run, because my priorities completely changed. So
Yep.
I used to be that person, because it was in Bury and the Bury Road's horrendous. I mean, extra horrendous as we say this, but I'd be in the office by 7:30, 7:45, so I'd skip all the traffic, but I'd leave on the dot. I just wanted to get home. And that was a weird thing in corporate, because you're expected to work late. Everyone else was work late. So it'd literally be, where you going? Well,
I'm off.
I was here, but also we'd have our little tea group. So I'd go in and make everyone a tea. There was always like 3 or 4 of us. Make the teas and then head down and get work before everyone came in at 9. Then you all chat. The phone starts ringing, the emails start going. Whereas I just thought, oh, God, I better stay late, because they're literally looking at
Who's on their
Right.
toes? Yeah.
yeah. And they'd sit around chatting. And I'm like, I'm not getting any extra work done with everyone here.
Yeah.
So so why is it? And I think that's corporate. It's like the memes you see about, like, let's boost morale, Pizza Fridays.
Pizza Friday.
It's that, I don't know, I think corporate's an interesting beast, and it's not for me. Whereas other people absolutely thrive in it. It's their thing. And it goes to that thing of, if we were all the same, it would be a very boring world we lived in.
Absolutely.
And that's where I think there's a space for everyone. And like when I'm talking to new business owners, there will be clients you will love working with. There'll be clients you don't enjoy working with at all. And it's finding that when they come in, you're like, who's your target client? Everyone. Trust me, it's not. You will not get on with everybody. We don't socially in like our own lives.
Yeah.
We don't. So I've lost my trail of thought, so the brain fog's kicked in of where I was going with that.
So you didn't necessarily envisage starting a business when you was in that corporate world, but having made that transition, would go back or would not go back?
Well, I was glad I was made redundant. And I was definitely like, well, because everyone's excuse for not starting their own business is money.
Mhm.
And I obviously got the gift of the money. So I was like, well, okay, let's put all of that into an account. Let's see how we go. So we'll give it 6 months.
Yeah.
And I probably had about a year's worth of money. So it's like 6 months, because also I wanted to work around Emily. So she was 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, give some flexibility.
Yeah. So there was a Facebook ad for a job doing virtual assistants, but I hated the term virtual assistant because I hated being virtual. I'm better face to face and 1-to-1. So there was a job doing admin at a distributor company for some huge baby brands. Got the job. The owner had a daughter similar age to Emily and 2 other children, so got it. And I just worked around. So I picked and chose my hours. And it kind of went from there, but that was almost a full-time job at first. So with a couple of other clients, I ended up working a lot more than I wanted to, but you do it to get the money in.
Yeah, to make it work, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'd do exactly the same again, 100%. And obviously it does give you that kick to keep going. But the problem was, so when I was 7 months pregnant, my dad went pop and passed away suddenly. So that then threw an extra element into it of grief, hormones and everything else. So it was a kind of, the work was I was doing the do and I'd get by and it was the right thing to do.
Would it be fair to say a distraction?
Yeah, just threw myself into it as I do.
Yeah.
Let's not deal with feelings and emotions, let's work.
Yeah, let's work through that, head down and
Yeah,
do the British thing. And
yeah, exactly. So, but I ended up working for that company.
let's talk more about that company, because I'm aware of like the level of importance like that you've told me before about like some things, and I've seen like the recommendation that kind of has been sent through, but like you're not just somebody who's helped small businesses, you've helped like an absolutely enormous business to do amazing things. So what, talk to us through like a little bit of an overview of
So I pretty much did everything in that company, which I think is fair to say. And the lady I worked for said same. So it was a huge brand at the time, big baby brand. Well, 3 big baby brands. And every single product that came to the UK through that came through me.
I had when we had our son, we had purchased every single one of those baby brands. So like it is we're keeping it all.
Yeah, I don't like to say what brand because it was the distributor for the brand.
Yeah.
So if anyone went and said, "Oh, who's this?"
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who that is.
But essentially, you were kind of like the UK arm of.
Yeah.
Like you were doing all the legwork. They had the product.
Yeah, for the orders, the invoicing, getting the products into like mamas and papas and the smaller baby shops. Selling online, direct to customer, looking after the stock and the website, getting the pricing right, sending stuff out to influencers.
Pitching a product as well, do you say? Like, so you went into mums and papas and...
I didn't do that bit.
But you helped to organise that kind of...
Yeah, so we'd send them stuff, send stuff to Harrods because they had a display in Harrods.
Wow.
And yeah, so it was... Yeah, it was a cool job. We even went to the what are they called? Like at the NEC and the Excel.
Oh, the expo.
Expos. Yeah, it's on the stand at the expo, selling
Amazing.
people, chatting to parents.
Incredible. All just from an advert that...
All the advert on Facebook. So yeah, and I did that for 7 years.
Yeah.
We worked together. So it was. I don't think I thought as much of it because I just do it. You just get the job and that's what you do, don't you?
Like looking back on it, it's like, wow, that was actually that was massive. But equally, like, you just one step at a time. We're doing this now, we're doing that, and then we're doing this. So
exactly.
And I think with when people people know the brand.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you've been around kids and things like that, you would know who Farley would be talking about. But I think there's a lot for any business of that behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're fantastic at providing that support for people. It's like
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. But like for me, for example, like I'm great at the recording. I'm great at kind of helping to set things up, to do the podcast editing and all that. Whereas sometimes I just have to run things past you, especially with pricing, because I'm rubbish at pricing.
We're both rubbish.
Both rubbish at pricing.
We're both like, okay, can I have £10?
Yeah, £2.50.
Yeah. Is it worth more than that? Yeah, probably. But I'm so
on the Christmas card list.
Too British.
But pricing, packaging, like kind of like when I'm talking about it to myself, I'm like, oh, imposter syndrome or whatnot. Yeah. Yet when I ask you for your thoughts, you know exactly what to say, and it's so reassuring from somebody who's like kind of a little bit nervous about it. And the amount of conversations that we work quite closely together. So I've heard like you back in the days when we had the Breakout office.
Yeah.
Just sitting there doing some editing, but like equally the conversations in the background. You've got a very, very in-depth knowledge about a lot of things. And I think, it's something that you shouldn't take for granted. And I think people just think that, Farley just does bookkeeping or whatnot, or just social media, but it's not.
Faffs on Facebook. That was always a good one.
Yeah.
Faffs on Facebook. Yes, I do faff on Facebook.
But it's much more than that. It's much more than
yeah.
that. So.
And I think the biggest thing and what I get out of that is bigging people up. So I see, because I've got such bad imposter syndrome myself, I see it in other people, but I'm good. I can sell anyone and say how great they are, and like whether it's yourself or like Lou from Toodle Pip. If someone's like, what do I do this? Go see that person. That's great. And they're like, what do you do? I'm like, faff on Facebook. I just can't do it for myself.
Chief tea maker, you often phrase yourself.
Cups of tea and coffee. But it's that thing of, but I know how it is. So I will support anyone to the ends of the earth. And I will always, it's like we were saying to Carl earlier. I said, I will banter to your face. I am that person. but I will massively big you up behind the scenes. So I'm trying to create the ethos of the opposite of those mean girls, of just stop bitching about people.
I was going to say,
amazing
I was
to them.
going to say, let's come back to that, because I think mean girls, but also like just society in general. I think as
negative,
as especially British, I think we don't like to see anyone necessarily doing terribly well.
No,
like if we look at the comparison with our friends across the pond in America, they're all bigging each other up, and I was listening to a podcast where I think it was Chris Williams, and he was talking about how in England it's like, oh, this is Farley, yeah, she does this, whereas like in America they will like almost give you like a stars in your ride kind of, like, you know, not stars in your road, this is their life, like the little kind of the book opens and they start singing your praises, putting you up onto that pedestal, how amazing you are, and then as an American you'd come in and be like, yeah, I am amazing, and but like little old England, we're just like, oh, well, we kind of do stuff, and
it's like frowned upon, and it is. It's been taken. I've been taken down a peg or two several times on different things I've been interested in or doing for people, and they're like, no, they've just dragged me back down again, because we don't like people to see succeed. Whereas the way I see it at Breakout, if I can help someone and they succeed, they'll take us along for the journey.
Yeah.
If I can, like social media, if I can make someone's social media amazing and they get loads of sales off of it, well, they're going to keep us on for longer. So it's like shared. And and I think everyone should be able to big themselves up, because starting a business is really bloody hard. And it's not, I shared something yesterday or this morning about, no one tells you about the late nights and the early mornings and the stressing about it and the tears. But even that, if you put up a bit of negative of how it's like, oh, it's attention seeking, or it's this, it's that, the balance in Britain for stuff like that is absolutely mental.
And so with the mean girls kind of thing, like, do you feel that when, obviously, you know, it's International Women's Week, I think a couple of days ago it would have, at the time of release of this episode, but do you think that kind of there is that competitiveness with women business owners in particular?
Women in general, but women business owners, I think it's that you kind of get two types. You get people that will cheer each other on, big each other up, or you get people that are really insular. They'll look at the competition, they'll compare themselves to the point then they will be like, copy other ones or try and be something they're not. But I think it's important to note that where we've had that, and we've had clients in saying, oh, she's copied me. Well, she can't copy you because she can't be you, but I get an element of copied your products or services or what you're doing, but people do tend to see through that now. So
yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in to this first part of the interview with Farley. Hopefully you've learned a lot, as I did, talking to Farley about her experiences. But unfortunately, we just ran out of time and we've not been able to get part 2 ready to bring to you. But we are going to in the next couple of days, so watch out for the next episode, which is going to be the continuation of Farley's journey. Having learnt a lot about how she's got to where she is today, we're going to talk about some of the more difficult decisions with moving Breakout to a remote-only service. We're going to talk about what she's up to at the moment, what her plans for the future are, and so much more. So thanks once again for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe to be updated when the episode drops. Tell a friend who you think would find this episode useful, and we hope you take care until next time we speak on the Breakout Business Rainbows and Unicorns podcast.